Hi, so you've probably heard of Docker and you want to understand how to use it. And you've watched thousands of videos, okay, not thousands, but you've watched a few videos and you still don't understand what Docker is. I'll be helping you out. This is a introductory to Docker, a basics of Docker, and I'll try and make Docker simple and fun for you to understand. So if you're interested, let's go. So in this course, we're going to have a basic overview of what exactly is Docker. You've probably heard about a container. If you haven't, I'll still talk about this. This is a container, the Docker alternative, and how exactly you can use Docker. So for starters, what is Docker? See, Docker is a tool for managing a container. That's just it. And we'll get to what a container is actually, but let's just take it as Docker is a virtualization tool. And sometimes back in the past, it was overlooked. Many people did not really understand Docker, so they had to dump it. But now, a lot of people have gotten the hang of Docker and they really use Docker. So why shouldn't you? Alright. The next part we're going to talk about is a container. Like I discussed earlier, we saw what a container was. But what exactly is a container? A container is like a box that has everything you need. A container has the source code, the dependencies, the versions, the runtime environment, everything you need about a particular programming language. Let's use programming languages. Let's say we're working with Python or MongoDB or Redis. A container has everything that you get on maybe your VS Code. It has it inside. A container is just like a box, like I said earlier. It's literally a box that has everything you always need. And it's quite easy to share these whole resources because you're moving from one person to another. If you're working in a software development company, you're trying to share information with your fellow workers. So rather than having different ideas or different setups, you use a container to share these properties with one another. Back in the days, we created different files and then indicated to our fellow workers that, oh, I have done this, and then they'll be like, okay, I'll check it out on my system. And then there's always this error that will be like, oh, it's working on my system, but when it's time to present to my headquarters or supervisors, it's not working on their system. So that was the whole basics of Docker. That was why Docker was mainly created, so we could have containers that housed everything we needed. So when I create my file and run my code, everything, I can share that container with my fellow workers and they will actually understand what I'm doing and they'll actually get the same results rather than having different results. So why exactly are we not using virtual machines if virtual machines are almost similar to Docker? A lot of people ask that question. Virtual machines may actually be similar to Docker, but they have these slight differences. Okay, so for virtual machines, for a container we have different values, like it's easy to start up, it shares the host with the operating system, and it actually uses less memory. Okay, has this parent-child relationship with your Windows operating system. Okay, while for the virtual machine has its own operating system, and this makes it slower to run. And then there's no real correlation between your Windows OS and your virtual machine. I don't know, I've not really gotten the hang of that, but as I learn, I'll also update you guys. So how do you exactly use Docker? You know what Docker is? It's an app that houses containers. It's like a big database. And then we now know what a container is. A container is like a box that has everything we need to run our code, the runtime, the dependencies, the version, the tags, everything. So how do you now use Docker? So the first part of using Docker is to know that we have what we call Docker images. And Docker images are like an executable application, just like I've written here, that includes the app source code and also the complete configuration environment. So back to containers. With containers, I did tell you that a container is a box that has everything about that particular programming language, right? Now, the Docker image is the file you need to have in the container. The Docker image is actually the thing that has everything. I don't know if you understand. The Docker image is just the file. Okay, it's a file that has the dependency, the runtime, every single thing. It's inside that Docker image, okay? And the Docker image is what is inside the container. And that is what is inside that box. And that's how you run Docker. So how exactly do you get these Docker images? So we get Docker images from what we call the Docker registry, which is our Docker hub. And the Docker hub is like a big database that has different Docker images for anything you want to ever search in this world. Sometimes some companies have their own specified Docker images, but we also have the ones on Docker. So like Redis, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Postgres, they all have their own Docker images on their own websites that they update and keep track of every single time. Yeah, and then the default location for whenever you want to get a Docker image is also the Docker hub. It's quite easier to get to the Docker hub. So when you want to get to the Docker hub, you just go on your Google and type in Docker hub, and then you see a whole list of everything that you need. So basically we have talked about literally everything you need to know for Docker. So let's just go through everything all over again. First off, how to use Docker. You need to download Docker on your system. You need to head on to www.docker. I'll leave a link in the description for where you download Docker, and you can download that for your system. Sometimes you also need to download WSL server. I did not know this. I had downloaded Docker already, and I expected it to run, but it never ran. It just kept saying Docker will be on, Docker will be on, and it never came. So 3 days later, I realized that there was something that had been added to my system called the WSL server. I don't even remember how exactly I added it, although I know that I was trying to get back at the errors that I was getting while I was trying to run Docker, and I noticed that a lot of people were saying on Stack Overflow that I should download the WSL server, even on YouTube too, so I downloaded it. So I think you should also download WSL server. Then before you start running your Docker system, you have to make sure your Docker engine is already running. So you load up your Docker. After you have installed it, you load it up, and then you start, and it's going to give you the Docker page where literally it's just the Docker page, and you're going to see engine running. And then when you do that, you go to your command prompt or your PowerShell, and then you launch Docker. How do you launch Docker? Remember what I said about the Docker hub where you get Docker images? So you go there, click on an image you want, and you see the code, the Docker code, which you call Docker pull command, that helps bring that image into Docker. Okay, and then you don't download, you just copy it and paste on your system in your command prompt or your PowerShell and run. Press enter, run it. It's going to take a while to load, probably 5 to 10 minutes, and that's that. So when that has been loaded, you check back again on your Docker system, and you realize that you have a Docker file running. There's a Docker image being pulled inside, and it's currently running. So that is how you run a Docker in your system. If you do not understand, you can leave your questions in the comment section, and if you have any more advices for newbies just like us are trying to understand what Docker is, then please leave advices in the comment section. Thank you for your time, and if you check other videos which I will upload sooner or soonest, we'll have Docker commands and how to make sure your Docker is actually running. Also, I'll deal on errors I faced while running Docker on my system. So thank you very much for your time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more tutorials and advices. Thank you.